Let Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu, melech ha'olam, asher natan lenu et derek hayashua b'mashiach, Yeshua Baruch Hu. Father Yahweh, we thank you for your salvation. We thank you for your Son. Oh, Father, we pray this day that you would use this humble vessel to speak your words, to allow your light and your hesed, your loving kindness, to fill this sanctuary, with your love and light, so that we can hear your voice, so we can hear and we can assimilate that which you're speaking to our hearts. I pray that these things that you give us this day would become part of who we are, and that we would be faithful not only to use and to walk and to live and breathe within your word, but to share it. For we're all in this together, and it's all about relationships. Help us to get the mindset of loving one another in this way, to lay down our life, to give up our time on behalf of our brothers and sisters in Messiah Yeshua. In your holy name, I ask this, Yahweh Eloheinu. All right. Oops. All right. Today, we are going to discuss something that the Father's been teaching me about. It's funny because when he starts downloading stuff in your head, he reminds you of all kinds of things in your past that kind of dovetail in with what he's giving you as a message. Today, we're going to discuss belief. Belief is one of those things that that the scientific community kind of dismisses, as they dismiss the spirit of man. But in the Hebrew, it's something amazing. Belief, in fact, the word belief is the word aman, okay? And it means to build, all right? It means to build one thing on another. So he is building within us. And it's, the more I studied this, the more I had initially this image in my head of building a tower, kind of like David talks about, you know. I run to the tower that is Yahweh. Strong tower, right? But he transformed that over the course of last month, and he transformed it into an understanding that's taking it to the next level. It's more about building a tree. And to do a understanding and a study on belief, we have to do a study on a tree. Okay? Now, let's ask ourselves, what exactly does a tree do? trees are pretty amazing. Trees take light energy from the sun, okay? It's coming down, and the leaves catch the light, all right? And they turn light into physical matter. Into physical matter. And when it does that, it grows, right? And it doesn't grow just, it grows, right? We see this in spring for sure, right? You know, when all of a sudden one day you go outside and you're just like, wow, look at that. All these trees are blooping out. Look at it. It's amazing. It's super cool. And it's just, because it's ready. It's ready, that time to receive the light and do something with it. Now, let's look at this in a spiritual context. All right? We are wired by the Father, right? We were created in His image, right? Okay? Now, what do we know about Yahweh? Yahweh is spirit. Okay? Yahweh is light. Yahweh is Hesed. He is love. So, we're wired to receive light and love. Light and love. We're wired to receive that. Okay? Now, when this light and love is coming down from the Father, it's coming down all the time. All right? But we're choosing to receive it, or we're choosing to resist it. So, we have to determine inside of ourselves to receive it. Right? And if we receive His light and His love, we grow exponentially in our belief. In our belief. Because He builds within us exactly what we need to grow. Now, this goes all the way back to, everything goes back to Genesis 1. But Genesis 1, right? You have two trees in the garden, right? 2 trees. Now, what are the 2 trees? You have the tree of life, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, correct? So, who is the tree of life? Yeshua. All right, Yeshua, good job. It's Yeshua, all right? So who's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? The Nakash, okay, the serpent. Now, Adam and Eve, they're walking and talking in the garden. They're walking and talking, communing with the Father. And what are they doing? They're eating from the tree of life, continually eating from the tree of life. Now, what does it mean to eat from the tree of life? Let's look at that. All right? To eat from the tree of life. Now, what am I doing up here? Okay, I'm speaking, right? And that's what it says Adam and Eve did with the Father. They're talking to each other. They're communing with one another, right? The words are going out. The word is going out. The word, if it's received, is eating the fruit. So, if you eat what Yahweh speaks, you're eating the fruit of the tree of life. Right? Okay? Now, what happened? Adam and Eve, at some point, after spending a lot of time with Yeshua, decided, oh, I'm going to go talk to that Nakash over here. They were told not to. Okay? They're told not to. Now, what happened there? They chose to depart from the direct, the path. Okay? They chose to depart from the path. And they chose to do what? They chose to listen to what the Nakash had to say. Now, Nakash means the shining one. All right? If something's shiny, it distracts you. If you're driving down the road and you get a reflection off of a windshield of a car or something, and you're just like, it distracts you. All right? And sometimes it's kind of, But sometimes it's like, there's two different, but either way, it takes your perspective and it skews it. It changes it. All right? Now, what they chose to do was they chose to listen to the word of the Nakash. To listen to the word of the Nakash. The serpent, the devil, the world. They chose to listen to the world. The world system, the spirit of the world. All right? And what did they do? They acted upon what they heard. Exact counterfeit of the truth. When you eat from the tree of life, you hear, you obey, you shema. And this is eating from the tree of life. If you do that with what the devil's speaking into your life, whispering into your life, what happens? You eat what? Death. You're eating death. All right? We don't want to eat death. Just ask Snow White. It's not a good thing. Not a good thing. All right. There's the psychological community. I minored in psychology, and I've always enjoyed disagreeing with the majority of the theories out there. But there is some good that comes out of it. Because science, it's funny because science is, in fact, complementing and confirming the word of Yahweh. One of the things in abnormal psychology class that came up and this is 20 years ago, it was a brand new concept, was that our choices actually change our DNA. They change our DNA. Now think about that, guys. On a cellular level, when we choose to make bad decisions, when we choose to eat death, it changes our DNA. Our DNA is kind of important. That's what makes us live or die. If our DNA gets out of whack, what happens? You get a thing called cancer or MS, or your genetics, when they go wacko, it's not a good thing. It leads to death. But there's a lady that Katie mentioned to Erica. Her name is Dr. Leaf, which I don't think is a coincidence. Because it's, there's the prophecy about the leaves bringing healing to the nations. I think I don't know. There's coincidence is not a kosher word, if you know what I mean. So, scientifically speaking, she had all these, because she was in the field for 30 years in the psychological community. She was on the cutting edge of all the new understanding about psychology, and she was there when I was just learning about Because my professor was on the cutting edge. He had all these people that were on the know of what was going on in the psychological community, and she was part of that. And they have pictures now because they have these huge microscopes, and they have the ability to actually look into the brains of people, okay? And when you do different things, it affects your brain in a huge way. Your brain, when you are praying, you have something that looks like a tree. A tree. Let's just look at this for a second. In Mark 8:24, you have a blind man, okay? And Yeshua spits in his hand, and he it's like, think about this guy, he asks for healing on his eyes, and then he hears the Messiah spitting. And then he feels the spit on his eyeballs, and then, Yeshua tells him, open up your eyes, what do you see? What do you see? And this is what he says. He says, I see people, but they look like trees. They look like trees. Now, in the psychological community, now that they can see into the brain, they actually have footage, okay, of what goes on in the brain during certain activities. So they can actually see the tree when you're praying, when you're doing specific meditations on good things. What happens is it's so cool. You gotta watch it. But you have all these little fingers in there, like, and there's actually little bitty lights that show up on the ends of these, what they're called dendrites. But there's lights that are like, doo, 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 like it's like a Christmas tree. And they get bigger and bigger, and then they go boop, and they pop. So these trees that are in your brain are bearing fruit. And in fact, they're changing the structure of your brain. You see, whatever we think about becomes physical substance. Just like a tree takes light energy and turns it into physical substance, in the same way we bring in the light, the ore of Yahweh, the Hesed of Yahweh, and He's raining it down on us, and if we receive it, guess what happens? Those trees in our brain are building exponentially, and they're producing fruit. And the fruit is transforming our brain. You see, Yahweh, He commands us. He commands us in Romans 12:7. He says, don't be conformed any longer to the pattern of this world. Don't eat death. But be transformed by the renewing of your mind. By the renewing of your mind. Now, we're triune, okay? As far as the way our structure, the way we're built, we have physical, all right? We have physical, okay? So we have a physical man, all right? But we also have a spiritual man. But the thing is he breathed into the dust, right? He breathed into the dust, and what did he say? He said, it became a living soul, right? So the soul is the bridge that links the physical and the spiritual. You become a living soul. If you separate the spirit from the physical, you're dead. Solomon talks about that when the silver cord is severed. You better talk to Yahweh and get right with Him before that happens, You're dead without the Spirit. If your spirit's strong, your flesh is strong. For as in heaven, so on earth, right? we are commanded to be transformed. Now, he's not going to command us to do something that he doesn't give us the ability to do, right? He only gives us commandments that we're able to do because he's a good dad. I'm not going to tell my kids to do something that they can't do. If I know they can't do it, I'm not going to tell them to do it. You know? You see, like Jesse, we went to Vertical Endeavors just recently. It's a place where they have that, it's like a giant Morton building, warehouse, that's got 40-foot, maybe even 50-foot climbing walls. They're super high, all right? And just all different levels of, of hardness. And Jessie, when I first hooked her up and got her harness on everything, and she's like looking, she's little. I'm little, but she's really little. And she's looking up at that wall and she goes, Dad, I can't do this. You want me to climb that? She was just very much in that moment. She's just like, I can't do this. You're asking me to do something I can't do. I'm just like, Jesse, I wouldn't ask you to do something you can't do. I was like, all you got to do, one step at a time. And so little Jessie, she gets up on there and she grabs, and then she's like, okay, what do I do? And I was like, your foot, there's a little step right there underneath you. Stick your right foot right on there. And that way you won't wear out your arms. Use your legs too, And so she pushes up on that, and so I just keep walking her through it. Okay, left hand, reach. I know you can, if you pull with this arm and reach higher with the left arm, you can get that next one. You can do it. And she's like, I don't think so. And then she'd try, and then she'd do it. And so it was a building process. Within her brain, at that moment, thoughts were becoming physical substance. And that physical substance was changing her reality. Because according to her reality, what she initially was believing, she can't do it. I can't climb that wall. But as she did do it, little by little, next thing you know, by the time we left Vertical Endeavors, little Jessie was flying up that wall. Literally, we were racing each other up the wall, and she was beating us. She was just like, boom, boom, boom. She was just like, and it was amazing. But her reality was changed, and her thoughts became physical structures that changed her reality. It changed who she was. It gave her abilities that she didn't have before. She didn't have the ability to climb before that. Not climb walls that are 40 feet high. But guess what? Through a little instruction from her father and a little obedience on her part, guess what? She started doing the impossible in her mind. The impossible became possible. Yahweh's calling us to do impossible things, guys. You see, in 2 Peter 1:4, he says, through these he has given us his very great and precious promises, so that through them you may participate in the divine nature, having escaped the corruption in the world caused by evil desires. Now, how many people here want to participate in the divine nature? Come on. Yeah, of course. We're commanded by the Father to fix our eyes on the author and perfecter of our faith, Yeshua. Right? Because that is the divine nature. And Remember, he's the Word, right? John calls him the Word. See, there's a few words that are associated with belief, okay? And each one of them is significant. Because belief means to build. And we've talked about building so that it changes your abilities, right? And that's aman, all right? That was what that word was. Now, the other one is what we always call faith, right? And that's amuna, okay? That's the Hebrew word for faith. Amuna, the root word for amuna is aman, to build. Amuna means to firmness. It means firmness. It means substance, okay? It means something that's firm that you can count on, all right? And it's an amazing thing. Okay, another word that I want to get into here is the word for promise. Okay, there's a few, because he mentions that it's through the promises that we partake in the divine nature, right? It's through his promises. Okay, now, the words for promises in the Hebrew, if you look at the meaning of the promise, it's word. It's dabar. Dabar is word. Omer is something spoken. Kind of like a word. You know? Now, who's the word? Yeshua is the word. So, Yeshua is a promise, right? Yeshua is the promise. He is the promise that we can participate in the divine nature. Now, so we are called to participate in the divine nature. All right? Now, this is the first time that Aman is mentioned. Let's look at that. There's a thing called the law of first mention in the word. And wherever a specific Hebrew word is mentioned for the first time, you need to take note because it's going to point you to something that's incredible. Okay? In Genesis 15:6, it says, Abraham believed Yahweh. Okay? And then it says, it was credited to him as righteousness. Okay? Now, Dr. Leaf talked about quantum physics. Okay? And one of the things that she brought up was the entanglement theory. That the entanglement theory is that we are a part of something that is outside of time. Because, remember our soul? It's the bridge, right? So this bridge that is us, a living soul, we have a foot in the physical, and we have a foot in the spiritual, right? Now, because we have a foot on both sides, we are a part of that which is outside of time. And that theory is called an entanglement theory. So I was like, okay, Father, do you bring that into, is that in this verse? So he's like, well, just look. And so I looked up credited, okay, because it says, and Yahweh credited it, it's kind of hard to say, credited it as righteousness, right? Now, the word there is hashab. Okay? Hashab. And this was just, I was like, that's so cool when I saw that. I was like, because it goes right along with what you're saying, the entanglement there. We're a part of the Creator. We were designed in His image, so we are in fact a part of that. When He says, Yeshua sits at the right hand of the Father, we're sitting there with Him. We're intricately interlinked. Yeshua prayed that we would be ihad with Him, Now, you think that the Father is not going to answer that prayer? But he asked that so that he specifically said that so that we could be ihad with the Father. Okay? Part of ihad, we're one with that which is eternal. All right? So you have hashab, which means to interpenetrate. And the word picture they give in the Strong's is to weave. Interpenetrate, to weave. To weave. So what he's saying there is Abraham believed. Okay? Now, you got to remember at this point, Abraham had been walking with the Father. And his building, he's building this relationship with the Father. It's growing. He is becoming like in Psalms 1, he is the tree planted next to the stream, right? Because he's receiving living water. He's receiving the ore, the light, and the hesed from the Father. And you see that all through Abraham's life. Now, here he is, he's believing. And now, he's being woven together. And what is Yahweh giving him? It's giving him righteousness. Righteousness. What are we given through Yeshua? Salvation. Kingdom. Righteousness. We need that righteousness, guys. We need it bad. And he's like, well, look at this other verse. So I looked at this other verse. In Isaiah 40:31, we all know this verse. But those who wait on Yahweh will renew their strength and will mount up on wings like eagles. Right? Awesome verse. The word there for wait is actually kavah. And you know what that word means? To bind together. To bind together through twisting. Once again, he's entangling us. He's making us ihad with him so that we can change. So that the damage the world has done to us, that we've allowed it to do to us, can be healed. Don't forget, we are designed by the Father to receive his light and his hesed. That's what's making us grow. All right? Now, let's put this in a practical sense. How do we apply something? Just the basic understanding. This actually, if you really consider it, it affects every aspect of our lives. But say, because this is kind of what the enemy does. The enemy will put some in your life. Say, like he'll make your knee hurt, right? Your knee hurts. Your brain starts thinking about that knee, right? Starts thinking, oh man, what's wrong with my knee? You know? Oh, it could be this, it could be that. Oh, that's not good. Man, I don't like the fact that my knee hurts. Or let's step it up. Let's say you have a pain in your head, and you start thinking, gee, man, it's getting worse and worse, man. And he keeps whispering these things in your ear. Are you listening to these things? And what are those things doing to your mind? Okay, you got to remember it's a tree. Now, once again, if you look at this in the microscope, where they actually look into your brain, when they tested people that were focusing and thinking about something negative, you know what they saw? And it's really kind of scary. What they saw was dead zones where there's no activity. here. There's no activity there. The more the person thought about negative things, the more these things pop up. So the brain ends up, and it's not functioning the way it's supposed to. So whenever we, once again, listen to the enemy and take a bite of that death, it's actually killing us. You see, our default is life. You know, we are to always fall back on, okay, if you're hearing this little whisper in your head that's saying, you know, you got a brain tumor, you got this, you got that, it's creating, your thoughts are creating substance that is changing your structure of your brain. That's crazy, guys. I mean, it's crazy, but it's the truth. And science has proven it now. So what do we got to do? We got to fall back on our default. We got to fall back on what does Yahweh say about us? You know? Well, Yahweh says, I know the plans I have for you. I got plans to prosper you. I got a hope and a future for you. That's what I have for you. And you know what? You're a new creation in Messiah Yeshua. The old's gone. The new's here. Live in it. Breathe it. Walk in it. Don't let it go. That's our default. You can either believe what the doctors tell you, or you can believe what Yahweh says. He's the one that created you, right? So isn't he the one we ought to be believing? Yeah. What else does he say? In Zephaniah 3:17, Yahweh says, Yahweh, the Elohim, in the midst of thee is mighty. He will Yeshua you. He will save you. He will rejoice over thee with joy. He will rest in his hesed, his love. He will joy over thee with singing. Yahweh's singing over us. He's just bombarding us with his or, with his light and his hesed. Are we going to believe it? Are we going to believe that that's in fact what he's doing in our lives? Or are we going to believe the world and all the things that seek to drive us down? The world would love to, the world's favorite thing to do is label. Label, label, label. You know, let's give people an IQ test, right? So that we can label you with a number. And that number tells you if you're dumb or not, or if you're smart or not, right? That's just one of a million different things. You know, in the psychological community, they always label everything. Oh, you got ADD, you got bipolar. You know, you got this, you got that. You know, you got foot fungus, you know, whatever. I mean, they love to just tell you what you have. And you know what you need for that? You need a drug. You know, because drugs solve everything, right? If you think drugs solve everything, you need to wait for at the end of the commercial, or they give you all the symptoms, you know, the side effects. Yeah. Ben's always like, yeah, just wait for it. Here it comes. Most of the drugs that are supposed to help with like depression, one of the side effects is thoughts of suicide. You know, you got these drugs that are supposed to help with, you know, prevent a stroke, but one of the side effects is uncontrolled bleeding. You know, it's just like, okay, yeah, I want to take that, right? But the bottom line is, who are you going to believe? Who are we called to believe? Who are we commanded to believe? Guys, in our lives, every single day, he's separating the light from the darkness. He wants to remove the darkness so that he can heal us through the light. And all we got to do is tune in. Now, the number one way to tune in is prayer. It's the number one thing that's neglected within the church. The body, the assembly. It's neglected. We're commanded to pray without ceasing, right? Pray without ceasing. That means we are supposed to be talking. Gee, what's that remind me of? The garden. Huh. You see, in the Hebrew, Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, actually is the throne of Yahweh. That's what it means in the Hebrew. It's the throne of Yahweh. David says, may I always be in your presence. May I dance before you. May I sing before you. May I always be there. Why? Because that's where life's at. You know, Yeshua gave a parable, and tons of people left because he basically said, you know, your family's going to hate you. I came to bring the sword, you know. And he said, well, you going to leave too? And he said, how can we leave? You have the words of life. They understood that he was the tree of life. And the only place I'm going to be able to eat this fruit is from him. So that's where I got to stay. I got to stay in the throne. I got to stay in his presence. That's where he wants us. And through Yeshua, that's where we're at, guys. So anytime the enemy is saying to you something other than the truth, which is he's got a plan for you, and that plan's to prosper you. And not only is it to prosper you, but it's to help you participate in the divine nature. The divine nature. To be like Yeshua. How cool is that? To be like Yeshua. That's where it's at, guys. That's what he's calling us to do. That's what he's called us to be. And are we going to reject that? Are we not going to receive that? I mean, that's like, why would we not receive that? But we get tricked. We get tricked by the Nakash, the shining one. The majority of the time, the things that pull us away from Yahweh are things that are shiny. You see, Yahweh tends to work through the gate of the ear. Okay? Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of Yahweh. All right? So he likes to work through this gate. The high priests, when they're dedicated, they put blood on their thumbs and on their ears, on their earlobes. I always was like, hey, what's the other one up with that? But the work of the hands, it has to be anointed. The ear has to be able to hear. And according to the Hebrew sages, all of your being is given healing through the ears. It's sustained and healed through the ears. Now, I'm not going to get too much into it, but the acupuncture people, they use the ears. If you have an addiction, they can stab you in your ear with those little needles, and all of a sudden, I don't really feel that addiction anymore. And there's specific places. And what it says is with the high priest, the earlobe represents the heart. It represents the heart, and that's where they put the blood. See, everything correlates. Yeshua said, out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Okay? Well, the heart receives from the ears. In the spirit realm, that's where it gets its food. It's from the ears. That's what makes us so that we're growing in him. Because what's our belief system? According to the Bible, according to Torah, our standard of belief is real simple. We do it every week. We speak it every week. There's the single most just basic statement that he gave us is, in fact, our statement of belief, and that's the Shema. That's why we say it every week, guys. It's because the Shema speaks of that relationship in the garden. It's hearing, it's obeying, And not only that, but it's, when you rise up, when you're walking down the street, it says that. It says that in the Shema. It says when you're walking down the street, when you're getting up, when you're going to bed, no matter what you're doing, it covers it all. You should be Shemaing. Shibi Shaman. I'm going to coin that. I'm Shaman. Like a t-shirt like that. That'd be kind of cool. At this very moment, I am Shaman. But if you take anything away from this at all today, it's believing is building. But it's building this beautiful tree inside of you. This tree that is the tree of life. Okay? Because what did Yeshua say? He said the kingdom of heaven is in you. Kingdom of heaven is in you. So the tree of life is in you. And you are in it. So allow that tree to grow. Allow that tree to flourish. And don't neglect the one thing that draws us and makes that tree flourish more than anything else. And that's prayer. That's prayer. Because as Eliyahu said, and my dad said the counterpart to that, so we're not here for us. We're here for everybody else. And if this tree's flourishing, then it's going to bear good fruit. And if that tree is flourishing and bearing good fruit, everybody that eats from the tree that is you is going to receive fruit from the tree of life. And that's what we're called to do. We're called to bear fruit and share the fruit. Share the fruit. Share the good news. Every single time we listen to someone, we have to realize, okay, is this fruit from the Father? Or is this fruit of death? Are they speaking death right now? Like Mike talked about, the Lashon Hara. If someone's speaking in such a way that it's changing your perspective about that person, it's making you think less of that person, they're speaking death. And in that moment, you need to check yourself. And you say, no, not going to eat of that fruit. Not eating. So by not allowing it to come in, by not taking a bite, you just let it fall to the ground. Right? Can't do that. Identify. That's the thing. In Hebrews, it talks about those who have exercised discernment on a continual basis. They're able to discern what comes from the tree of life, what comes from the tree of death. So that you know which one to, oh, okay, that's good. That came from the Father through you. That's awesome stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah. It's good stuff. And you see, the Father is love, right? And the more our tree flourishes, the more love you have for everybody else. And the more you want to serve everyone else. You're not concerned about spouting off your opinion. You're concerned about listening to the Father and knowing what to say and how to say it so that it makes them grow. Right? So everybody benefits if we simply believe in what Yahweh says about us. If we believe it and if we live in it, everyone in the kingdom is benefited. But if we don't, we're actually we're either spreading fruit of life or fruit of death. So, if you're not for him, you're against him. You don't want to be against him. Don't want to be against him. It's not a good place to be. Resisting the Father. I've been there. He knows how to kick my butt. He does that. But we need it. We need it. That's the reason why, the word shalom, it means, well, the letter shin specifically in shalom means, on one end, it means teeth, okay? It means to destroy something. And on the other side, it means to nourish, as a baby needs nourishment from its mom, okay? We need both in our lives. But the thing is he'd rather have us just stay in tune with him so he didn't have to bring this. He'd rather not give us destruction. It's just like I tell Jess and Phoebes and all my kids, I'd rather not spank you. I really would rather not. But if you need it, you're going to get spanking. But that thing, that little swat on the leg that doesn't even really hurt, but it makes, like Jesse's so funny. I mean, literally, I'll say something to her, and you can just see her, she's like, but she's like, she wants to be a good girl. She wants to be a good girl. And I'm like, put your hands behind your back. And I was just like, barely, you can't even hear it. So you can't even hear it. And she's just like, because she desperately wants to please her dad. She wants to be a good girl. And that's the heart that he wants to see in us. Yeshua said, if you're not a child, you can't enter the kingdom of heaven. You can't. If you don't have that relationship, you can't do it. So that's what the Father has given me, and he pieced it together from a whole bunch of different areas over the course of this last month. And praise Yahweh, and I hope it's blessed you this day.